Stephen Hawking said, "My advice to other disabled people would be to concentrate on things your disability doesn't prevent you from doing, and don't regret the things it interferes with. Don't be disabled in spirit as well as physically." Stephen Hawking is a world-renowned physicist despite having a physical disability. Stephen Hawking is a brilliant man who doesn't give up. I will show you this in 3 main points. 1. Stephen Hawking has obtained a PhD. 2. Stephen Hawking has battled a crippling disease. And 3. Stephen Hawking has many scientific triumphs. Early in his academic life, Stephen Hawking was not an exceptional student. In fact, he was always at the bottom of his class and eventually attending Cambridge and Oxford universities. My first main point is Stephen Hawking obtained a PhD. On the Stephen Hawking website, found at hawking.org, it stated that Hawking entered Oxford University at the age of 17. His desire was to study mathematics, but instead he gravitated towards physics. Hawking admits he only dedicated an hour a day to school. He graduated with honors from Oxford University in 1962. It also states on the same Stephen Hawking website, hawking.org, that he continued his education at Cambridge University for a PhD in cosmology. At this time, there was a lot of debate on the Big Bang Theory and the steady state theory, on which he wrote his thesis and received a fellowship. He obtained his PhD in cosmology in 1966 and an essay entitled Singularities and the Geometry of Space-Time. Shared top honors to win that year's prestigious Adams Prize. In my first main point, I shared with you how Stephen Hawking obtained a PhD. In 1963, Stephen Hawking poured himself into his work and research after doctors gave him 2.5 years to live. My second main point is that Stephen Hawking is battling a crippling disease. In a biography of Stephen Hawking found on disabledworld.com, it states that while attending Oxford, Hawking noticed he was becoming clumsier. After undergoing a series of tests at the age of 21, Hawking was diagnosed with ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease. His nerves that controlled his muscles were shutting down and he was given 2.5 years to live. That was 52 years ago. In the same biography of Stephen Hawking, found on disabledworld.com, it says that Hawking's physical disabilities declined. He is now completely paralyzed with the exception of a movement in his cheek muscle, which he uses to control a computer program called the equalizer. Hawking is able to use his cheek muscles with a rate of 1 word per minute to select phrases or words or letters from a screen, which is then sent to a speech synthesizer, which then is heard. I shared with you in my second main point how Stephen Hawking has battled a crippling disease. Hawking's disease helped him become the scientist he is today. With the realization that he might not live long enough to earn his PhD, he poured himself into his work in research. My third main point is that Stephen Hawking has had many scientific triumphs. In a biography of Stephen Hawking found on biography.com, it states that in 1974, Hawking's research turned him into a celebrity within the scientific world when he showed that black holes aren't the information vacuums that scientists believed they were. Hawking demonstrated that matter in the form of radiation can escape the gravitational force of a collapsed star. In the same biography of Stephen Hawking, found on biography.com, it is noted that since 1966, Hawking has dedicated his life to science. From 1979 to 2009, he held the post of Lucasian Professor at Cambridge University, the chair held by Isaac Newton in 1663. Professor Hawking has over a dozen honorary degrees and awards, including the Commander of Order of the British Empire in 1982 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. I shared with you in my third main point that Stephen Hawking has many scientific triumphs. Stephen Hawking is one of the most influential physicists since Sir Isaac Newton. In 2014, the movie called The Theory of Everything was released. It is a movie about a brilliant and celebrated physicist named Stephen Hawking. I admire his dedication and will to achieve in spite of his crippling disease. Had he lived a healthy life, he probably would not have done the things he had done. Quoting Stephen Hawking, when one's expectation reduced to zero, one really appreciates everything one does have. Stephen Hawking is a brilliant man who doesn't give up. First, Stephen Hawking has obtained his PhD. Second, Stephen Hawking battles a crippling disease. And third, Stephen Hawking has many scientific triumphs.